Now that we have the thumbnails sort of worked out, it's time to move on to the next phase, in which we take all of the thumbnails and all of the text and all of the character sketches, and we start building them into the actual size and shape, figuring out the details. So the first consideration is the size of your paper. We touched on it before, but now it's time to actually fully figure out what size your book is going to be. Once you figure that out, it's important that you create your document. If you're doing it digitally, it's important to create your document at the proper size. You want to make sure that you're using the proper resolution, which is 300 dpi or above. So even if you're creating in Procreate, if you go and create a new canvas, you'll have a lot of different options here to create. If we're doing something for print, we're going to want to choose inches. A page is going to be 8 by 10. We're going to actually have the width would be 16 and the height would be 10, because it's going to be easier to lay them both out on the same spread. If you're doing them individually, that's fine too. You want to make sure that your DPI is set at a high enough resolution to be able to print well. If it's too low of a resolution, when you go to print, it's not going to look sharp and crisp and clean and all of that. It's going to be more pixelated. But we're going to go back to the thumbnail. Because I created this at the size that I wanted it to be initially, I'm just going to use this and I'm going to draw directly on this. The nice thing about drawing digitally is you can just kind of draw over the top of things and work with it that way. So the next thing that I would do, rather than getting into a full-blown drawing, again, we still have some details that we need to add. Once we've figured out the sizing and the shape and the relationship to everything in your thumbnails, you can go in and you can start adding details. So the thing that I want to do the most right now is add details to Saul's character. And doing so will give us a template to start adding in the final drawing that will happen later. So I'm still going to be a little bit sketch-like, but I'm going to put more thought into how he's going to interact with everything around him. And at this point, you can start thinking about their physical characteristics, their expressions, those kinds of things in the building out of the sketch. The corners of the mouth are turned down a little bit, the eyebrows sort of pressing down somewhat. So this is Lonely Saul. For some of the other planets, we're going to add characteristics as well. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to add physical features. Now, the consideration here, the feeling that we're trying to get across is that he's sad and lonely. For me, visually, one way of illustrating that is to have all of the planets have facial features, not super expressive ones yet, but they're just sort of like, they're all kind of facing away from him. So they're all sort of circling around, but they're all just kind of like, they're not paying attention to him. They're just kind of looking out and around and doing their own thing. So on these planets, we're going to go in and add just some very general facial features. So this gives us a little bit more of an idea and a little bit more fleshed out design to work from when we go over and we start adding in our actual finished piece.